Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Columbus, Georgia, and it is time for the TT Time with Dr. Tarver is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. It's week 3 in August and we are rolling, rolling, rolling. So I know that this month we're celebrating National Wellness, and we want to have that goal of spreading some great goodness out here in these wellness streets. And I thought it fitting for us to really talk about a period of reflection in which we really have learned some life lessons. So at some point in your life, much like me, you have thought about like what do I really value? And of those things I value, what do I feel like has contributed to my wellness? And if you haven't had that conversation with yourself yet, then no worries. It's a good time to have it today because we're going to be talking about the life lessons of gratitude, grace, and temperance. So, a few weekends ago, I was invited to a church, and the topic that I chose was actually temperance because the name of the ministry has temperance in it, and I thought, oh, temperance, that would be a good topic, and sure enough, come to find out that temperance is a part of some of these virtues and values that are really helpful to us as we're navigating being the healthiest versions of ourselves. And so I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit about what I learned in that journey today. So I'll start off by telling you that it's probably no secret I've mentioned this before, and if you know me, I say this jokingly, but it's true all the time, which is I'm one of those people that have had to learn the hard way. So I know some of you, like people can talk to you and tell you, like, hey, the best course of action is this, but I've always been one of those people that was like, let me actually see, let me test this thing out. I used to experiment with things. My mother probably almost went to jail a couple of times because one time I mixed all her perfumes. Now, you know how ladies are about their perfumes, and so I mixed them all together. Just creating different scents. So let's kind of mix some of this and this and this and this and this. You well know if you are a person that likes a good parfum or a good cologne that mixing them together is ill advised. The other time, I wanted to see what would happen if I let the sink fill up with water and it overflow. Like what really happens when you fill a sink up? Like what like really is going to occur? Now I was a wee bit younger when I did both of those things. However, that's one of those experience is a good teacher kind of things that I've had happen in my life. But I have always been the type of person, or at least in this adulthood, where in order for me to believe something, like I have to hear it a few different times from credible sources. So even as I'm looking up information, and you'll see, how they'll do these clickbait titles out here, and so you'll click onto something to find out more information because it seems interesting. Then I'll go do a deep dive in Google and figure out like, is that really accurate? That information doesn't seem to match up with this, and so I am the same way when it comes to hearing God's voice. So in my head, I'm like, is that God or is that me? I need some confirmation that that was actually God. I think I just like threes. I'm a good Trinity kind of woman. One for the Father, one for the Son, one for the Holy Ghost. And so I think that when I get confirmation from multiple sources that I trust, it allows me to recognize like this is a good choice because again, I have been one of those hard life lessons kind of persons where I have, done things, in the past, maybe like a couple of days ago, where I found myself really thinking about like, is this a good choice? And if it's not a good choice, why isn't it a good choice? You all probably have inquisitive kids, And you're probably like, well, why do you keep asking me these questions? Because we're really trying to understand how to make decisions that are going to be good decisions, that I will actually be able to apply these lessons in life and learn from them instead of like just kind of trying things impulsively, like, let me see how this turns out. But I think one of the things, and I know this is true for me, that frustrates us in this journey of life and these life lessons is when people do the things that we've struggled with. So, in raising my child and I have very similar personalities, and it really aggravates me at times because I'm like, stop acting like me. But really, what I will say to you is stop doing that thing. But really, what I mean is, hey, Tarver, stop doing this thing that you've been doing that doesn't work, and now you're seeing your child do it, now you're mad. And so I think that as we navigate in this journey, I have been told, now why would you do that? I told you not to do that. If you would just have listened. And I get like so annoyed, not because what you said to me was true, but because I had to just figure it out on my own. Like, why can't you just listen, girl? But it really had made me reflect in doing this episode about what are some of the things that I have learned in life. What are some of the things that have allowed me to be able to navigate, to be well, to be healthy? Things that I think are beneficial and that I would want other people to know. Now, I will tell you that the hard lessons are the ones I remember because they are the ones that walk with me in life. They have significantly impacted me over the years. And they are usually dressed in some embarrassment, shame, guilt, regret. It might be that super speeder ticket. For those of you, and not because I've experienced this myself, but this is what I've been told. For those of you who've gotten a super speeder ticket, then you get hit with your initial citation. You pay that, and then because it's a gift that keeps on giving, in your state, they will send you an additional ticket and tell you if you do not pay this fee that your license will be suspended because they're like, if you could be out here driving recklessly and putting people in danger, then you need to go ahead and pay double on it. But also, I will say these are the type of lessons where you don't think about the cost. And I think a lot of times for me growing up, I didn't think ahead to consequences. And again, we're talking about like a couple of days ago. But seriously, I think that sometimes I have not made good decisions because I didn't think about the potential outcome. And you may have been in spaces where you're like, oh, I really want to do this thing. Maybe it's I really want to go on this vacation. I want to go on this trip. I want this outfit. I need a new car. I need some new tires, whatever it may have been. But you know that you don't necessarily have the money budgeted for that. And so in our minds, especially if you grew up with any kind of faith, you'll be like, oh, God will provide. Not when I'm out here being impulsive and reckless. Like, I could have waited on that thing. Or maybe it was something that I wasn't going to be able to do. But because in that moment I could justify the spending, now I'm actually short on something that is a necessity. And sometimes we are in situations where we do need things, even if we don't have the money for them. And it does work out. But I will tell you, oftentimes it is the lack of planning, lack of budgeting, lack of putting that savings in place that led to me being in that position in the first place, where now I'm at a point where I have to make a tough decision financially. Financial lessons are usually hard lessons, whether it has been gambling for people. If you grew up around casinos, so I grew up in Mississippi and have heard the stories of people betting, putting up for collateral, if you will, things like their mortgage, things like their car title, in order for them to be able to have some leverage to play. Because as you know, when you're in that place of addiction, and this could be shopping, this could be drugs and alcohol, this could be gambling, this could be sexual addictions. I know people who have struggled with porn addictions. You're paying to play, if you will, and so spending money, and who have found themselves in precarious situations to feel that need, that desire, that we're not necessarily making the best choice about because I haven't addressed what's underneath this behavior, right? Hard lessons, being robbed because you're in places that aren't safe, because you're trying to seek things to fill voids, being in situations where you're with people who violate your boundaries because when that red flag presented itself, you ignored it because you want to believe the best in people. Like, oh, you're such a great person when I first met you, or at one point, and so it's hard for me to reconcile that you're not showing up to be that person anymore because I haven't really truly believed you that this is who you are, and that the person you presented to me was a person that was just a actor in a play, so you could get me to this position of trusting you to some extent. And so you find yourself in situations where people are taking from you, abusing you, using you. You're in positions where you are thinking like, oh, I'm ready to handle this thing, and I take this huge step, but I haven't really gotten all the information. So, something I told you I can go on a deep dive, but there's been times in my life where I didn't do quite enough research. I didn't get quite enough information. So I paid more for something than I could have had I done a little bit more research. I didn't get a quality item if I had taken a little bit more time and gotten research. And sometimes because we're like, oh, I just need to go ahead and get this taken care of, then we cheat ourselves out of reading that fine print. I know a lot of you have scrolled through all that information when they tell you to read it before you sign, and you just sign it, and you don't know what you have signed yourself up for. When we were in college, how many of us got a college gym membership because one of our homies or homettes was working at a gym, and that was back when they would give you a little bit of a bonus if you would bring some people in. And so you bring in everybody from the dorms in and from your organizations. We're not going to the gym, and how hard it is to be able to cancel those contracts. And now, we're defaulting on things. How many times we've signed up and said we're going to pay something off by a given period of time with full intent to pay it off, or maybe sometimes we didn't have the full intent of paying it off, only not to be able to keep that up. And we see that happen frequently with people when we have that relationship with money where there's been a lack, and then we get some money, and then we're like, oh, let me do all this stuff because I don't know when I might be in a situation to do this again. So if we get a lump sum of money, whether that's taxes or someone leaves you some money, or there's a settlement of some kind, and so you have this money, and then what we realize is that we'll run through it and we won't plan, we won't budget, and then this money is gone because I haven't really addressed the relationship with money, right? Those are those hard lessons. Sometimes we're in situations where we have the idealized version of someone, and so we have children with them, we move in with them, we get married to them, like any one of those steps, and then like we're with this person, and now I'm stuck essentially in this contract because we're co-parents, because we're in this lease together, or because we're married, and I didn't find out enough information about you to make a good decision about whether or not you would make a good co-parent or a good partner in life. Like, I didn't find out about all your family dynamics. I didn't find out how you manage money. I didn't find out how you problem solve, how you regulate your emotions, how you're able to express your emotions, if you have good communication skills or not. And so now we're in this situation where I'm realizing we're on completely different pages, but now I feel like we're kind of in this state of obligation, and it would be difficult for us to get out of it. So these are the kind of life lessons, right, that they're hard. And what I understand about those tough lessons is that in order for us to be able to navigate them more successfully, to make different decisions, to be able to cope with the decisions that we've made and learn to love ourselves through our mistakes, is we've got to have basically a guidebook. Peterson and Seligman will call it cardinal or human virtues. And we have essentially things that we have learned are our guideposts, our soft spaces to land, right? So what do those look like? And why are they important to have? So first up is wisdom and knowledge. And I know you all are thinking, okay, that's real basic. To some extent, it's basic. I will tell people all the time that if you're in a position where you're not learning, then essentially you're on the other end of the spectrum where something is being deleted. You're losing something, right? Because what we know is that if you don't use something, you will lose it. So if I'm not gaining any understanding and applying these life lessons so that I don't continue to keep having the same kind of outcomes and continue to be in the same situations, I'm going to be on that loop, that endless loop. Like, oh, I get it taken care of, then I'm back in a situation again. Taken care of, back in the situation again. And I can cycle throughout that through the entirety of my life. So it's important for us to be able to take that knowledge and understanding and be able to utilize it in a way that we can make different decisions. And I think part of this kind of, I'll add a subset to this, which to me would be gratitude. And gratitude is being able to be thankful and appreciative of those hard lessons, being able to see those joyful moments, the moments of laughter. We don't take ourselves so seriously. So when I make those mistakes, I'm able to say, yeah, like that was absolutely not intelligent, was not a good choice on my part, but I can do different. And I'm taking something from that experience, right? I tell people all the time, you can learn from any experience, whether it's I just will not do this again. I won't do this person again. I won't do this thing again. But you learn from everything. And so being able to be in that place of gratitude around that life lesson, that wisdom and knowledge, is something that can help us navigate through this journey of wellness and allow us to be able to see things through a different lens. It is essential to have courage. There are going to be things in your life that are just scary, that are uncomfortable, those hard conversations that we try to avoid, that we don't want to have, taking that leap of faith, stepping out because I'm the only one, no one else has done this, so I don't have anyone to look at in terms of guidance in this particular area. To be able to stand up for myself, to be able to let people know how to treat me, and that to do anything less than that is to choose not to have me in their space. Like that takes courage. Courage is also one of those things that in those difficult moments, because sometimes we have to make tough decisions. Sometimes life is not going to be fair or kind, and we're going to have to be able to step out even when it doesn't feel like it's safe or secure or certain, in order for us to be able to move through something, heal through something, journey through something to get to that other side of that wisdom and knowledge and that gratitude. We have to have courage. I say seeing people is very important. Like to really not just see what a person can do for you, not just see how a person can show up for you, not how a person can support you, not how a person can advocate for you, not what a person can give you access to, but actually see a person, the humanity in a person, the person who is underneath all of the layers where we hide and we shield ourselves because we're fearful and we want to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe. It's important for us on this journey to have that virtue of humanity, to treat people with respect, to treat people with kindness, to be understanding, to be caring. And let me be clear, that does not translate over into being exploited or abused or manipulated or taken advantage of, as much as it is in recognizing who a person is and giving them some understanding about where they are. Understanding and access are two different things. Let me be very clear. I can understand your situation. I can understand why you behave in the way that you do. I can keep you in prayer, and I can also keep you at a distance, right? But being able, it is those moments in life, and I think this is speaks back to us being able to be gracious. When you help somebody, when you see them struggling with a bunch of boxes trying to get into a door, or got a bunch of bags trying to get to their car, or you see that older person and you can tell that they've gotten overheated and they're starting to stumble a little bit, and you make sure they sit down and get them some water and ensure that they're okay before they travel home. Like those kind of moments where you see the humanity in that parent who may have a bunch of children with them at one time and they're just trying to take a moment and get a bite to eat. So instead of looking at them and judging them for being kids and being a little active in a restaurant, that I give that person some understanding in that journey and maybe possibly entertain their children or ask them if there's anything that you can do. It is those little things that are very important in this journey is for us to realize that we have not lost our humanity because sometimes it can be hard to remember that. Justice to me goes hand in hand with humanity because if I see us as connected, whether we're connected because we're both human beings, whether we're connected because I see us as children of God, whether we're connected because I see us as part of a similar group, insert race, ethnicity, gender, whatever it may be, then I am not going to allow anything to be done to you that I would not allow to be done to myself. Right? I'm going to speak up on behalf of those people who maybe don't have a voice. I am going to ensure that I am fair, that I do my best to ensure there is equity, that I am considerate, that I am thoughtful. And it's very important for us that we don't just look for justice for us. Because I know when somebody shorts us on our change, when someone doesn't treat us with respect that we deserve, when we're coming to receive a service, when someone gives us a quote and then later on tries to charge us more money, right? Well, I want that justice. In that moment, I need to be just as resolute when it's someone else who I see has been treated with injustice. I think that it's important for us to have the capacity to be able to understand that we need to do things in moderation. That's actually what temperance is. Temperance is us being able to find, create, and manage habits that stop us from doing things in excess. I think that temperance is composed of a lot of different things, some of which we've discussed, but being able to be humble, being able to have patience, being able to forgive, because otherwise I'm going to be operating in extremes. If there isn't balance in my life, I am a Libra. I've mentioned this before. I like my scales balanced. When things are out of balance, I don't like it. Right? But that balance is good for me because it allows me to have that temperance. It keeps me from being reactive. It allows me to take a step back and be responsive. And sometimes, if we would just moderate, if we would just take a step back and think before we speak, if we would think about outcomes of things, if we would be mindful about our needs balanced with our wants, if we will be thoughtful about that sometimes there's a longer term goal and not necessarily be focused on the right here, right now, short term thing that may change if I just give it 24 hours. Right? If we can learn to do that, then oftentimes we would be able to treat other people in just ways. We would be able to see the humanity in people. And that leads to this piece of mercy. Now, my pastor always says that mercy is not getting the consequence we deserve, and that grace is getting the favor we don't deserve and haven't earned. And I will say that sometimes we mess it up. We don't get it right. We hurt people. We aren't kind. We aren't thoughtful. We don't make good decisions. And we're going to have a negative consequence. And we deserve to have that consequence. However, mercy allows us to be thoughtful about that consequence. When I'm talking to parents about giving their children consequences, I frequently tell them, now let the punishment fit the crime. You all are taking everything away, and this child was, disrespectful at dinner. That doesn't warrant you removing all the toys in their room, no electronics, stripping your room down to nothing but a bed and a mattress, and you won't be able to do any. You can't read a book. You can't. Okay, right. And this goes back to the temperance, allowing us to have some moderation. Sometimes we are going to be thoughtful about why a person engaged in the behavior that they did. We frequently will hold people accountable to rules, guidelines, and expectations that we did not give them. And then when they don't do what we never told them we needed them to do, then we're ready to nail them to the cross. And so sometimes it's important for us to understand, and this is a part of, again, that temperance, that moderation, and that justice, and the humanity in people, is sometimes the consequence does not have to be as severe as we think it should be for a person. Because we want grace, right? When it's us, like, oh, I mean, I know I don't deserve it, but be kind to me. And the other person is like, you better get all of this smoke. So sometimes we need to be thoughtful that us having mercy means that we also need to have grace, right? That same grace that we want for our extended to us when we haven't earned it is the same mercy we need to extend to someone else. And that speaks to humility. It is very important that we're able to learn not only from our mistakes, but that we're able to learn from others. That we're able to recognize our limitations, that we're able to receive feedback, that we're able to understand that we're not operating in this vacuum, that there is a higher power that guides us, that walks with us, that allows us to be able to have that support. And that humility reminds you of what? Your humanity. So sometimes I need to be humble because pride does go before a fall, but also pride is one of the major things that interferes with us having healthy relationships with other people, but also wellness in our own lives, because that pride comes with stubbornness. And that stubbornness blocks me from being able to receive feedback, to be able to understand where I might have some areas that I need to grow. So if I'm out here thinking I'm perfect, and it's going to be very difficult for me to receive any kind of constructive feedback about myself. Then it turns into an arrogance and a hubris. And then I get to a point where now I don't have relationships with people because I'm too busy trying to be right. I think it's also important that we have prudence. And you know, prudence, like prude? All that simply means is that we are thoughtful, that we are intentional, that we understand the consequences of our behavior. We know how we impact other people, and we take responsibility for that impact. You all have heard many a time one of the quotes from Maya Angelou: I may not remember everything you said to me or did to me in my lifetime, but I most certainly am going to remember how you made me feel. And I think sometimes we are dismissive of how our behavior impacts other people, of how a person experiences things, because it's different than what I experience. But that's their experience, and they're able to have that. And so, as we're having this prudence, which rolls back into what? Humility, which rolls back into the mercy, which rolls back into the temperance, and the humanity, and the justice, right? Is me being able to understand that just because I can do it doesn't mean I always need to. Because I'm going to be thoughtful about how that might impact another person. And that allows me not only to be well within myself, but it allows me to give other people space to be well, because I'm not causing a negative impact in their lives. You know, people love them some Tabitha Brown. She's one of my favorites. And what does she say? If you decide not to have a good day, don't you mess up anybody else's. And that speaks to the self-control piece. We are responsible for ourselves. If we're not well, it is because we have not made the effort to be well. You know, one of my favorite scriptures, as they describe him, the invalid at the well, in this affliction, and because you have not done anything but lay there and wait for others, and you have not decided yourself, hey, no, let me take some control in this. And so when asked the question, do you want to be well? Do you want to be made whole? Do you want to be healed? Then I have to take control for what that's going to look like. I'm not going to be healed by not doing anything because we know faith without works is dead. So if I'm not going to eat healthier, if I'm not going to get that exercise, if I'm not going to continue to give people money and then be a part of my budget and then me be complaining about I don't have enough money to do what I need to do, if I'm going to have a different outcome than being manipulated, used, and mistreated in relationships, if I am going to write that book talking to myself, then I have to take some self control and be able to put the things in place that are going to allow me to be successful. That means I got to make changes, and I have to be intentional about the changes that I'm making and be consistent in making those changes, right? I did a reel a couple of weeks ago when I talked about what am I half doing, right? And that is that self control piece. Because if I'm going to go work out, eat well, a few days, and then go wash it down with some things that are going to undo the work that I did, then I'm going to be in that same place, up, down, up, down, up, down. But I'm not going to see any consistent changes because I'm not being consistent. And that speaks to transcendence. Sometimes we have to look beyond ourselves. We have to, as we think about our philosophy that we want to operate from, our mantra, we have to think about a perspective that includes not only myself, but also concern for other people and how I want to be engaged, seen by, experienced by other people. There is a social psychologist, Frankel, that talks about self-transcendence, that is a central a feature of being healthy and being able to grow and develop. Because I have to be able to look beyond my circumstance right now. I have to see beyond only what I can view with my eyes and be able to get into the recesses of my mind and explore beyond me and explore the possibility. I have to believe it to behave it, right? And so as we're thinking about how do I take all of the things that I've experienced from one birthday to the next, from growing from childhood to middle adulthood, to older adulthood, to a place of being able to reflect and not sweat all the small stuff and not take myself so seriously and to love myself in the skin I'm in, and to feel purposed, and to be doing things that are joyful with people who are joyful, then that means I have to tell myself that these virtues, these values, this system that I operate from, that I'm adopting, has to be one that is going to promote the direction that I want to move into. I tell my clients frequently, when we stop learning, we stop living. All right? So if you want to be living, then you need to be living well.